Hi, everybody. My name is David Allen Brown, and I'm with Interaction Associates, and I'm here with Rachel Grail. Hi, Rachel.
Hi, David. Glad to be with you today.
It's good to see you again. We had such a great time doing our webinar a few weeks ago on difficult conversations, the elephant on the table type of thing. And I thought maybe we could spend a little time. There were some follow-up questions and some things we didn't necessarily get to. Those are such tight little time packages we do. And do you have some time? Let's work some things out.
Yeah, I'm excited to do that. I love that we got extra questions and that we get a chance to answer them because this really is an important topic.
That's what I'm finding out. Like the questions just keep coming because this happens every day in different situations. And so let's talk about some of the different things that people have brought to us and wondered about that. And here, right off the bat, one of the biggest ones, and this question came up more than once, both before and during our webinar, and that's the difficult conversation up level to your supervisor or your leadership. And I know this adds an additional layer of stress when this situation rolls around. What do you got for us? What's
Yeah,
what's your
well,
insight?
it's no surprise that this comes up a lot because I think the biggest issue that we all have with putting the elephant on the table is just getting that running start to feel like, okay, I can do this. I can have this conversation. This conversation is welcome. It's not going to damage my relationship or my career. And so when we're thinking about bringing something that feels challenging, maybe it's some challenging feedback or just a difficult observation to someone that quite literally can control our destiny. It's maybe the juice doesn't feel like it's worth the squeeze. So I think I want to kind of start by offering a counterpoint that in actuality, leadership really depends on people on the front lines, people who maybe have visibility into what's really going on, to be able to report back and say, this is what I'm seeing. This is what's working. This is what isn't working. And so I think first I want to give people sort of the permission and give a little plug for having the courage to have these conversations because it really does make you valuable. And there are some important kind of approaches that I think will help people not do anything career limiting. I'm sure you have some. I think the first thing that I will point out in that respect is just getting permission first. Hey, I'd like to bring up a concern that might feel relevant to you, or it might be a difficult conversation. I do think it's important. Are you open to that? Is this a good time? Because it's not going to do anybody any good if we just launch into the challenging conversation without checking for readiness. That's true for whether you're managing up or horizontally or down or having a talk with your friend or your spouse. So that's always true, but I think especially it's true in the case of managing up.
I think so. And I really appreciate your reminder that leadership and really everybody who's working together on a team, we hope to create a culture in which we want that feedback and we want that the opportunities to grow. I think that one of the things that I would offer in addition to that is finding the the shared values that exist. And I mean that in a couple of ways. One is that just when you ask for permission, building on what you were saying, is reiterating, I feel like on this team, we all support each other. Do we agree that we're trying to do the very best we can for other folks? So there's the values of your culture, but
Mhm.
sometimes too strategically, it's understanding what your boss values
Yeah.
and making sure that you're positioning the feedback in or the ask in terms of something that's going to be a win-win for everybody and
Yeah.
framing it in that sense of if we did this, I feel like we could all get to your goal better and put it
Right.
back to what it is that they want or are seeking. The simplest example I ever saw was an employee who wanted help because they wanted to ask for their own dedicated fax machine. And I was like, what? And like they were in sales and they were like, if I didn't have to walk up to the front reception, they had a central fax machine for the whole office. If I could just be doing all, I was like, okay, so what's it going to do for you? Productivity, more sales, faster client response. Great. Those sound like shared values that your boss would be able to say, okay, that makes sense to me. So sometimes you have to find that mutual ground, and sometimes it's heartfelt, and sometimes it's just good old business.
I love that. I think, yeah, both having shared values and, like you said, shared goals. This reminds me of something that comes from Liz Wiseman in her book Impact Players. she talks about the win, looking for the win. And it's, of course, a little acronym because we love acronyms in leadership development, but WIN stands for what's important now.
Mm.
And so aligning whatever it is that you're sharing or you're asking with what's important now, not only to you, but to the person that you're bringing it to. It's just this really best practice of saying, hey, we're on the same team. It's me and you against this issue, not me against you, or you need to fix my problem for me because of this or that. So I love that. I think shared values, shared goals, I would add, but really having the courage to do it and not blaming, not using aggression, but just saying,
Mhm.
I want to bring this up to you because I think this is important for the success of our whole team or department.
Yeah, I think that why is really important. And it goes a little bit into something else that has come up in some various questions too, which is this all sounds great, but my team or culture or company has never really bought into this before. We don't do difficult conversations. And that's tough when you think about trying to recreate or what we call it, steer the Titanic away. But at the same time, I wonder if you feel some of these foundational stuff that we're talking about now, it's the answer too. What are the shared values? How can you create an at least appreciation for a shift in the culture that might mean advancement or improvement, both in that personal way or in a business way? So I think we're starting in the right place as far as culture change. On a bigger scale, though, how do you approach a culture issue like this?
Yeah, carefully and iteratively, I think is the short answer. I would say, like, it's important to, there's this funny saying, don't keep going to the hardware store for milk. It's like you want to make sure that you're really the whoever you're working with is ready for what you have to bring, right? You don't want to set yourself up for asking people to take a leap that's a little bit too far. So I would say if you are recognizing that the culture where you are and where the culture is, there's a big divide or delta, then I loved what you said about some of these foundational things of identifying the what for, not only for yourself, but for each other, but then really starting small. Like maybe don't start with the big sort of main challenge in the organization. Hey, it looks like we've got one leader that's making all the decisions and none of us have input. Maybe start with something like, I wonder if I could give some input on this agenda for the day since we're working together in this meeting. So start in the places where they're small, build collaborative capability, build the experience for others that it is safe to have conversations that might be a little bit uncomfortable. And then you get through it and people start to realize, oh, I actually feel better. I feel like we have more trust, not less. And so we kind of have to, as they say, trust is built in droplets, or it's grows in droplets, lost in buckets. So I think starting to take some time drop by drop, making people feel that it's safe, it's okay, they can have conversations that are a little bit edgy and build it up over time. I don't what do you think? I'm sure you have some.
I think I do absolutely agree with those sort of little steps and little agreements, small agreements is something we talk about a lot at Interaction Associates. But in our leadership trainings and even just as leadership experts, you and I, that sense of you have to absolutely have to model the behavior. There's no really waiting for permission on these types of things of, gee, would it be okay for me to dive into, especially depending what the topic is, if it's something that's truly adversarial or something that's really detrimental to your work experience or to the business as a whole, there has to be a sense of I want to jump into this. I need to. It's important. And if it's something that's interpersonal, then there's no reason to short shrift the value of the relationships in the workplace. We're there a lot. It's vital. And so it almost becomes almost a personal wellness issue as much as a
Yeah,
business issue. And
yeah,
it does take some courage. And at the same time, really just some responsibility. This is
yeah.
what I want to do. And that's why we do the work that we do, because I think people are asking these questions because they've come to an understanding. Look, I need to have this conversation. That's
Mhm.
why we want to give you the steps on how to make it successful. And I think that's the thing that happens for us a lot when I'm teaching, and maybe you as well, is we talk a lot of theory sometimes, and oh, I do need this, and our workplace would be better, and you're right, this is a value I have. But one of the things I love about Interaction Associates is then we give you the template. Talk in these specific ways. Paragraph one, make sure you're doing this out. And these are proven things. It's not like we're like, oh, all right, maybe we should do that. We know that these conversations work in
Yeah.
this way. And
Yeah.
so creating a culture isn't just the bravery of, oh, I need to have this conversation. It's,
Yeah.
and now I can model how we can do these conversations well so that it doesn't go haywire the first time and everybody's, that's why we never tried that before.
Right. That's the first and only time I'll try it.
Thanks anyway, but oh no, there are proven ways to make this happen. And I think
Yeah.
after the bravery is a little bit of skill and a little give and take and
Yeah.
maybe some coaching and maybe some we're doing it with the friend first and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
We're not throwing you out there to the wolves. We really do have ways of making this work.
And as you're talking about this, I love what you're saying, like modeling, and if we're going to offer a really practical way, I think one of the easiest things you can do if you feel like you're in a culture of never having difficult situations is to name what's going on, but with yourself as the guinea pig. If I'm putting together a meeting and I'm needing a lot of feedback and I know it's not perfect because work is iterative, I can then say, look, it seems like we've got a history of not wanting to hurt people's feelings, but I really want to hear your feedback. I really want to know how can I make this better? Demonstrating, like I'm naming what's going on from a cultural perspective, and then I'm inviting the discomfort for myself because I know that I've maybe done the work to receive that in a way. And so we can start by modeling it and people go, "Oh wow." And then to acknowledge that, thank you. I know that was hard for you to say. I really appreciate you letting me know that is going to make this work better. You being willing to share that with me is going to make it better. So we want to have a feedback loop of acknowledging, hey, I know that was challenging. Thank you for sharing that with me. And then, very importantly, actually doing something with the feedback that we receive,
Yeah,
demonstrating that we're going to improve based on it. And it didn't just go into a vacuum of non action.
right.
So there are many, like you said, David, there are many different approaches, but I think I'll leave it just at that one example for there.
Yeah, but let's talk about a tool that IA uses throughout our own work and that we teach so often. And that's a simple method for feedback that is quick and easy and can be put into almost any situation. That's our plus delta model. And I
Mhm.
teach this a lot because so often where we started this conversation was that, oh, the difficult, I need an outline, I'm going to have to practice. But where we are is how do we create an open culture? And I
Mhm.
love your answer of we ask for that feedback and we show we're open. But oh, does that mean a survey every time? Does that mean a barcode or a QR code I have to scan after every meeting? Does it mean another survey from HR? No, simple. Work into your agenda time, one-on-one, any meeting that you have, 5 minutes at the end to do what we call a plus delta. And that's just a simple chart on one side are pluses, things you appreciated about our meeting today. And you'll find that people get warmed up to the idea of saying, I really appreciated what Mark brought today, or gee, the coffee was the right temperature, or the list, the most fundamental things that just help nurture that gratitude. The key, though, is the delta, which is a triangle symbol, which is the symbol for change. And to be able to phrase the question as something we might do a little different next time, something we could do different next time. And somebody might mention the projector that was broken or starting a little more on time or dividing. It can go to something over time where these are really substantial things that people are bringing, but you're not asking anybody to call anybody out or say what went wrong or blame or say that it was broken. Just how might we just get a little better? Spend 3 minutes on doing that at the end and consistently. And then, like you say, take action on the deltas, make the change next time, make sure there's tea in addition to coffee or whatever it is,
Yeah.
make a more specific agenda or whatever it is. But this is just a way of inviting feedback. That's how culture changes, not
Mhm.
always, as you say, as you pointed out, by just diving right in and saying, well, it's time for us to get into this, but
Yeah.
just creating just an atmosphere of no, we seek improvement, we welcome feedback, and we're open to it, and we ask for it as well. So I
Yeah.
love that as a simple way.
Meaningful but iterative, small
You're right.
little muscle, building our muscles over time. I'm so glad
Absolutely.
you brought that tool in. I think that's
Yeah, I think
perfect.
it's a really good one because it just it adds an informality to
Yeah.
something that's really important. And it can really happen off the cuff, and people tend to be willing to participate with a couple of more minutes of, oh yeah, here's a thought I had about today.
I want to talk about another tool that I think could be really handy, like the Plus Delta. Very practical, comes up in a lot of situations, and I think is especially useful for a situation that we got a lot of questions around, which is how do I approach conversations when there's maybe a plurality of relationships at play. Like we have a friendship, we also have a supervisor staff relationship, or there's these different ways that we have to work together. And so the tool that I think is really important is how to build small agreements. This is something that sounds really simple. It's really, oh, we make agreements all the time. What do you want to have for dinner? Ah, if only we didn't have to decide that every single day. But it really does become this cornerstone of how do we actually approach a difficult conversation, and really to make agreements with the people that we're working with on the front end can really help. David, you were mentioning this earlier. Do you want to run with that idea a little bit? I want to hear what you.
I think it ties a lot of the things that we were talking about together because the questioner in this one really even stated, I'm just going to read a little bit. I get anxiety and my stomach hurts when I have to have these conversations, and I'd be more confident and not have these feelings. And so when we talked before about this, chunking off the big thing or diving into the really sticky situation, yeah, that does create a lot of anxiety. And in that same way that we said, how could we step back and see where our shared values are? And go into this as well. It's okay, what's really going on here? Where is that anxiety coming from? Is it because that there's a disciplinary action, or is it the work outcome, or is it your friendship that you value that want to make sure isn't enhanced, or is it just the uncertainty of not really knowing how things are playing out right now? And so that ability to step back and say, okay, so what do I need to set first? That's, I think, where the small agreements come in. Can we agree that our friendship is really important and we need to figure out a way to communicate both in the workplace and outside of the workplace? Can we agree on a mutual work goal, and can we talk just about that goal for right now? Can we agree on whatever that next thing is? Can I talk to you after work about how nervous I was about this conversation? Just whatever it is that just helps realign us with who we are as people, and a little less with what may or may not happen. And sometimes getting that appreciation and support directly from the person that you're talking to is really the best place to start. And a way to do that is to create an agreement. Can we agree that this is what we're going to talk about right now? Can we agree that this is difficult? Can we agree? I don't know, Rachel, what else might you bring to the table as what can we agree on in this situation?
I love this idea of small agreements and all of these little distinct pieces, because one of the things that I hear a lot when I'm teaching our course on raising and addressing difficult subjects is that they get that anxiety because they're afraid they're not going to do it. And so I think one of the things you can agree on is, can we agree that I might mess this up a little bit and that I'm not trying to, and that if something isn't working, you'll let me know in the moment, or we'll spend time to repair it, or a little bit of, can you give me grace because I'm doing the best I can. So oftentimes we need to say what's holding us back from having the difficult conversation first. It's like the first truth first. Hey, I want to have this conversation, but I'm afraid, or I don't want to hurt the relationship, or I'm afraid I'm going to mess it up, or whatever it is. We got to get that off our chest. And like you said, make agreements about what we'll do given the reality of the situation. So, how will we move forward together? Again, it comes back to like just being on the same team as the person that we're having this conversation with. We
Yeah.
don't have to know how to do it. We just have to say, let's talk about our process. Let's agree what we'll do as we go along.
Yeah. I think it's one of the things that I like the most about working with you and working with Interaction Associates, and then of course all the people that we teach, is that it really crosses into a realm that I love, which is understanding that yes, we're in business and these are our jobs and there's a lot at stake sometimes, and we're just people. And what our goal is to be the best we can be, to support the people that are around us, to move together as a team towards a common and understood goal, and to recognize that we're humans doing the best that we can. There are structures and tools and the ways that people receive information that can be super helpful, and we're glad to teach you those. And the bottom line, it sounds like what you're saying, Rachel, is then there's also the fact that sometimes you just have to sit down as a person who's fallible with another person who may not be on the same page and just say, can we talk this out and do the best that we can? And so we're glad to provide you with that information in all the ways and to bring our hearts to it as well. And I know you do too when you teach.
Yeah, I love that what you're saying. And I think it really is about who we are as interaction associates is the interaction method. It's the really an expression of the belief that we do better when we do things together. And yet that can feel scary, that can feel hard, that can feel messy. So how do we take a facilitated approach to building understanding and agreement so that we can do the work that matters to us? And that's what this is all about. We don't have to know how it's all going to go when we set out to do it. We just have to be willing to keep trying to do it together and suggest some processes along the way that might make it easier.
Fantastic. So we've done some great reminders today, some simple tools, some good philosophy, and also just a whole lot of support, which we're pleased to provide you at any opportunity that we can. Thanks for being a part of the Interaction Associates family. We hope to work with you soon.